Welcome to Cosmic Tales, a show about the myths, history, and science hidden in the night sky. I'm your host, Diana, and together we'll explore the cosmos one tale at a time. The night air hangs warm and still as the stars of summer begin to burn against the darkness. Low on the horizon, a great celestial scorpion slowly coils into view, its heart glowing red like an ember in the sky. This is Scorpius, one of the oldest, brightest, and most feared constellations in human history. Let's dive into the ancient drama that turned a group of stars into a legend. We already met Scorpius in the story of Orion. It was the creature sent to kill the hunter, and it was so dangerous that the two were eventually placed on opposite sides of the sky, forever chasing and fleeing one another across the seasons. But that isn't the only story attached to the scorpion. The Greeks had another tale, a quieter one, less famous, and considerably stranger. Most people familiar with Greek mythology know the broad outlines of Phaethon's story. He was the son of Helios, the sun god, and spent most of his youth dealing with a problem that sounds exhausting. Nobody believed him. "My father is the sun," he would insist. "Sure he is," everyone else replied. Eventually, the ridicule reached a breaking point. Phaethon set out to find Helios himself, not for a quiet confirmation, but for proof. Something undeniable, something that would settle the argument forever. Helios, suddenly confronted with the son he largely missed raising, and perhaps carrying a certain amount of guilt about that, made the mistake that would echo through mythology. He swore an oath by the river Styx to grant Phaethon anything he wanted. This was not a casual promise. An oath sworn on the Styx was one of the most binding rules in the Greek universe. Not even the gods could break it. And almost immediately, Helios realized he had made a terrible mistake. Phaethon asked to drive the solar chariot across the sky for one day. There was probably a long pause. Then Helios tried everything he could think of to talk his son out of it. He explained that the horses were enormous and barely manageable even for a god who had handled them for eternity. He described the route itself: steep climbs, dizzying heights, dangerous descents. He warned of celestial monsters and hazards waiting along the path. No mortal had ever done this. No mortal could do this. He begged, he reasoned, he laid out in painful detail exactly how catastrophically this was going to end. Phaethon listened to all of it. Then he climbed into the chariot. The horses knew immediately. The hands on the reins were wrong. The grip was wrong. The weight was wrong. Their master was gone, and they reacted accordingly. They bolted. Phaethon lost control almost immediately. The chariot lurched wildly across the sky, swinging in huge arcs, diving too close to the earth and scorching it, then climbing too high and leaving it frozen below. Deserts formed, rivers dried, the world alternated between fire and ice as the runaway chariot carved chaos across the heavens. Zeus looked down from Olympus at an earth that was simultaneously burning and freezing, and came to the only conclusion available to him. This had to stop. So he hurled a thunderbolt. Phaethon fell from the sky, trailing fire, crashing into the river Eridanus, now a constellation itself, stretched across the southern sky like the path of his fall. His sisters, the Heliades, stayed by the riverbank and mourned him for so long that they transformed into poplar trees, and their tears hardened into amber. As Greek tragedies go, it is impressively thorough. That's the version most people know. But there's another version found in Ovid's Metamorphosis, and this is where Scorpius enters the story, though not in the way you might expect. Ovid describes the zodiac not as a neat path across the heavens, but as a dangerous road lined with cosmic hazards, each stretch of sky ruled by its own creature. As the runaway chariot tore through the region belonging to Scorpius, Phaethon looked up, and there it was, an enormous scorpion rearing above him, claws spread wide, stinger raised, filling the sky. It didn't sting him. It didn't attack. It didn't even touch him. The scorpion simply existed, and that was enough. Phaethon dropped the reins entirely, which, if we're being honest, is a slightly underwhelming role for a creature that once killed the greatest hunter who ever lived. In Orion's story, Scorpius is an instrument of divine justice, the small, relentless thing Gaia sent to humble the most powerful hunter in the world, succeeding where bears and lions failed. That version has drama, it has irony, it has a clear lesson about hubris. The Phaethon version gives Scorpius a different role entirely. Here, the scorpion is essentially very frightening scenery. It doesn't attack Phaethon, it doesn't sting him, it doesn't punish him. It just looms there, enormous, terrible, filling the sky, and the sight of it helps trigger one of the great disasters of Greek mythology. There's something almost funnier about that. Orion, the greatest hunter who ever lived, was defeated by a scorpion. Phaethon, who stole the chariot of the sun, was defeated by the sight of a scorpion. The creature didn't even have to move. In the ongoing drama of Greek mythology, Scorpius has an impressive track record for something that mostly just appears and lets everyone else panic. But the most satisfying version of the story is the one written directly into the sky. As Orion sinks below the western horizon, Scorpius rises in the east. They never share the sky for long. The hunter is always retreating as the scorpion arrives, locked into an endless pursuit written across the seasons themselves. In that sense, Orion is still running, and Scorpius is still following. The distance between them has been preserved by the turning sky itself, night after night, year after year, for as long as humans have been watching. By any reasonable measure, it may be the longest chase story ever told. The Greeks placed Scorpius in the sky as an instrument of justice, a warning about ego, pride, and what happens when mortals or heroes start believing too much in themselves. Half a world away, the Māui looked at those same stars and saw something entirely different. Not a predator, a tool, and not an ending, but a beginning. In Māui tradition, the curved tail of Scorpius, one of the constellation's most recognizable features, is not a scorpion stinger at all. It is the great fishhook of the demigod Māui. Same curve, same stars, completely different meaning. Where the Greeks saw an instrument of death and punishment, the Māui saw an instrument of creation, which is one of the things astronomy teaches over and over again. The sky stays the same. We're the ones who change the story. To understand the hook, you first need to understand Māui, one of the most beloved, clever, and comprehensively overachieving figures in all of Polynesian mythology. He did not have an auspicious beginning. Born prematurely, wrapped in a top knot of his mother's hair, and cast into the sea to die, Māui survived through miracle and intervention, eventually being raised by his ancestor, Tamanuitira. From that deeply unpromising start, he went on to build an extraordinary resume. He snared the sun itself using ropes woven from his sister's hair and beat it with his grandmother's jawbone until it agreed to move more slowly across the sky, which, according to tradition, is why days are long enough for humans to actually get things done. He stole fire from the underworld goddess Mahuika, burning himself in the process so humanity could have warmth and cooking. Maui was, in short, the kind of person who treated the impossible as a mild inconvenience and everyone else's skepticism as a personal challenge. His most consequential feat, though, involved a hook. Maui's fishhook was no ordinary tool. It was carved from the jawbone of an ancestor, a sacred tool with magical properties, called in some traditions the line that talks to heaven. And in the sky, the curved tail of Scorpius traces its shape almost perfectly, hanging over the southern horizon like a giant hook waiting to catch something enormous. Which, as it turns out, is exactly what happened. Maui was the youngest of his brothers, perpetually underestimated and perpetually proving everyone wrong. So, when he announced that he wanted to join them on a deep-sea fishing expedition, they refused. Too young, too reckless, too likely to cause problems. Maui responded in the way he often responded to obstacles, by ignoring them. Before dawn, he hid inside the canoe and revealed himself only after they were too far from shore to turn back. His brothers found this predictable and deeply irritating, which was probably part of the appeal. His brothers had bait. Maui did not. He solved this problem in a very Maui sort of way. He punched himself in the nose, used his own blood to consecrate the jawbone hook, and cast it into the deep water. What he caught was not a fish. The line suddenly pulled tight. The canoe shuddered. And from somewhere deep beneath the ocean, something enormous began to rise. Up from the water came a vast landmass, new, dripping, and heaving itself out of the sea on the end of Maui's line. This island is still called Te Ika a Maui, the fish of Maui, and today we know it as the North Island of New Zealand. Maui, demonstrating considerably more foresight than his brothers, immediately gave them instructions. "Wait," he said. "Let the land settle. Perform the proper prayers before anyone steps onto it." Then he left to find a priest to carry out the necessary ceremonies. His brothers ignored him almost immediately. They began cutting into the land, dividing it among themselves before it had properly formed. And according to tradition, every cut left a mark. Mountains rose where they carved. Valleys opened where they divided. Ravines split the landscape apart. The dramatic topography of New Zealand's North Island, the peaks, the gorges, the volcanic highlands, exists because Maui's brothers could not wait. Had they listened, the island would have risen smooth and flat. Instead, they got mountains, which, depending on your perspective, was either a disaster or excellent long-term planning for tourism. The curved tail of Scorpius, visible during the New Zealand winter, was understood by Maori navigators as Maui's hook, still hanging in the heavens after the Great Catch. It remained useful in the practical sense, too. Like it did for navigators across the Pacific, the shape helped mark direction in the southern sky. But here it carried something more. This was the hook that pulled an island from the deep. A reminder that the land beneath your feet was not simply there, it had been caught. And woven into that story is a lesson that feels almost inevitable. When the demigod who just hauled an entire country out of the ocean tells you to wait a little longer, you wait. What's striking is how much the Greek and Maori traditions agree on the shape of Scorpius and how completely they disagree on what it means. Both cultures looked at that same dramatic curve of stars and immediately recognized something functional. Neither saw it as decoration, neither saw it as passive, but from there they split in opposite directions. For the Greeks, the scorpion is an ending, the creature that humbles the mighty, punishes the boastful, strikes down the overreaching, and restores cosmic order. For Maori tradition, the same curve becomes Maui's hook. Not something that ends a story, but something that begins one. It pulls land up from the deep instead of driving judgment down onto it. Same shape in the sky, completely different story. So, what exactly are we looking at when we look at Scorpius? Astronomically, it's the 33rd largest constellation, covering about 497 square degrees of southern sky. It contains 4 Messier objects and 13 stars known to host confirmed planets. And it used to be bigger. In ancient Greek astronomy, the scorpion's claws stretched farther than they do today, reaching into what is now Libra. The Romans eventually split them off in the 1st century BC, reimagining them as scales and giving them a new constellation entirely. Scorpius, in a sense, has been getting trimmed back for 2,000 years and remains deeply unimpressed by it. At the heart of Scorpius sits Antares, the brightest star in the constellation and one of the most remarkable objects in the entire sky. It's a red supergiant about 550 light-years away, and its scale is difficult to really take in. Its diameter is roughly 700 times that of the Sun. If you dropped it into our solar system in place of our Sun, it would swallow Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars entirely, with its outer layer stretching most of the way toward Jupiter. Its deep red-orange glow is visible to the naked eye. And that's exactly how it got its name. Antares means rival of Ares, Ares being the Greek god of war, known to the Romans as Mars. The idea was simple. The star looks so much like Mars that ancient observers needed a way to tell them apart as both moved through the same region of sky. It's a small but vivid reminder that the night sky was never a fixed backdrop. It was crowded, shifting, and had to be carefully watched. Antares also had a companion, a hot blue-white star called Antares B, visible through larger telescopes. The contrast between the two, red and blue-white, side by side, is one of the more striking double-star pairings in the southern sky. And Antares is dying. Sometime in the next 100,000 years, which is soon by cosmic standards, it will collapse in a supernova. When it does, it will briefly become visible in daytime and outshine the full moon. Anyone alive to witness it won't forget it. For now, it just burns red and enormous in the tail of the scorpion. The scorpion's tail is where things start to get especially interesting. At the very tip of the stinger sits Shala, one of the brightest stars in the night sky. It burns a brilliant blue-white, and like many of the stars in Scorpius, it's not alone. Shala is actually a triple star system. 2 massive stars orbit each other every 6 days in a tight, rapid dance, while a third star loops around the pair on a much longer orbit. 3 stars lock together in a complex gravitational choreography that astronomers use to understand how massive stars form and evolve in systems rather than in isolation. Nearby is Demigod, another multiple star system made up of hot, massive, fast-spinning stars. And as you move through this region of sky, a pattern starts to emerge. Scorpius is crowded. Single stars are almost the exception here. And beyond the stars themselves, the deep sky objects in Scorpius are just as remarkable and considerably more photogenic. The butterfly cluster is an open cluster of around 80 stars, visible to the naked eye and especially striking through binoculars. Its brightest stars trace out a loose butterfly shape across the field of view, hence the name, which for once in astronomy is exactly what it sounds like. It lies about 1,600 light-years away and is roughly 95 million years old, making it relatively young in stellar terms. Its brightest star is a warm orange giant that stands out against the mostly blue-white population around it, a small-scale echo of the Antares contrast, playing out within a single cluster. The Cat's Paw Nebula is a vast, active star-forming region and one of the most productive stellar nurseries in the Milky Way, containing tens of thousands of stars, including some of the most massive young stars known. It spans roughly 70 light-years and glows in reds and blues, hydrogen and oxygen lighting up the classic signature of star formation. In July 2025, the James Webb Space Telescope captured a close-up view of its internal structure, which astronomers nicknamed the toe beans, the individual lobes of the nebula. In one region, a newly forming star had ejected material so violently that it created a visible shock wave in the surrounding gas. In other words, a star announcing itself, essentially by punching outward into the surrounding cloud. The Butterfly Nebula is something else entirely. Where the Cat's Paw is a nursery, the butterfly is what comes after. It's a planetary nebula, the expanding shell of gas shed by a sun-like star at the end of its life. As the star runs out of fuel, it expels its outer layers into space, forming a slowly expanding cloud shaped by radiation and stellar winds. The Butterfly Nebula is one of the most intricate examples of this process, its twin lobes stretching outward like wings. At its center sits a white dwarf with a surface temperature exceeding 200,000 Kelvin, nearly 360,000 degrees Fahrenheit, making it one of the hottest stellar remnants known. It is, in the most literal sense, a dying star's breath, frozen in the act of becoming something beautiful. Scorpius sits on the edge of the richest stretch of the Milky Way visible from Earth. The true galactic center lies further in the direction of Sagittarius, but Scorpius frames it from the west, and on a dark night the effect is genuinely striking. If you simply sweep binoculars slowly through Scorpius, not looking for anything in particular, just taking it in, it becomes one of the best observing experiences available from the southern United States or the southern hemisphere. The field is packed. Star clusters appear like scattered salt across black cloth. Dark nebula cut through the Milky Way like ink stains. Entire regions look too dense to be real, as if the sky should not be able to hold that many stars in one place. It's the kind of view that quietly explains why humans started looking up in the first place. Scorpius is one of those rare constellations that actually earns its reputation. It looks like what it's meant to be, a scorpion, tail raised, crawling along the horizon in a way that feels almost intentional. And it is loaded. It contains enormous stars visible to the naked eye, active stellar nurseries captured in the act of forming new systems, and dying stars so extreme they push the limits of what stars can be. Depending on the tradition you're following, it killed Orion, terrified Phaethon, or fished an island out of the ocean. Antares will eventually explode as a supernova. The Cat's Paw Nebula is forming stars right now. The Butterfly Nebula is what a star looks like on its way out. Birth, death, and everything in between, all contained in a single constellation, visible to the naked eye if the sky is dark enough and you know where to look. So when Scorpius rises on a warm summer night, low in the southern sky, with that deep red heart glowing against the dark, it's worth stepping outside with binoculars. Orion is still below the horizon, still running. Maui's hook is still hanging overhead. And Antares is out there, quietly counting down. This has been Cosmic Tales. If you've enjoyed tonight's journey, follow and subscribe wherever you listen and leave a rating if you have a moment. It genuinely helps. You can also find us on Instagram at Cosmic Tales Pod, where we post images of the constellations and deep sky objects we talk about so you can follow along visually. Until next time, keep looking up, because every star has a story waiting to be told.